Chapter 1: The Black Ice Anomaly. The wind howled like a banshee, tearing at the edges of my sanity as much as it did at the reinforced walls of Outpost 7. It wasn't a normal wind, not the kind you get used to even after 5 years stationed in the Antarctic. This wind carried whispers, faint, guttural murmurs that slithered into your mind, promising oblivion, hinting at things best left buried under millennia of ice. My name is Dr. Aris Thorne, and I'm a glaciologist, or at least that's what my official title says. Unofficially, I'm part of a covert research team studying anomalies, disturbances in the ice that defy explanation, echoes of events that shouldn't exist, whispers of a past that predates humanity itself. Outpost 7 is our home, a cluster of prefabricated modules clinging to the edge of the Transantarctic Mountains, a desolate monument to human curiosity, or perhaps folly. The current team consists of 4 individuals, including myself. Dr. Lena Hansen, a brilliant but unnervingly pragmatic geophysicist. Lena is our resident expert on seismic activity and the deep structure of the Antarctic continent. She's seen things in the ice that have made her question the very foundations of reality. Ben Carter, a young, eager, and unfortunately naive geologist. Ben is fresh out of university, full of enthusiasm and textbook knowledge. He's about to get a very harsh lesson in the limitations of academia. Sergeant Major Eva Ristova, our security detail and the only one of us with any real combat experience. Eva is a stoic, battle-hardened veteran of the Russian Spetsnaz. She's seen horrors in war zones that pale in comparison to what's lurking under the ice. We've been here for 6 months, a long, drawn-out winter of endless night and bone-chilling cold. The isolation is a beast in itself, slowly gnawing at the edges of our minds, amplifying every fear, every doubt. And the wind doesn't help. It started subtly, a low hum beneath the usual Antarctic symphony of cracking ice and groaning metal. But then it grew, morphing into distinct words, fragments of a language I didn't recognize, yet somehow understood. It spoke of a city, a colossal metropolis of obsidian and bone, buried deep within the ice. A city that was never meant to be found. I initially dismissed it as stress, the onset of cabin fever. But then Lena heard it too. And then Ben. Even Eva, a woman who could stare down a charging polar bear without flinching, admitted to feeling uneasy. The whispers intensified after we discovered the anomaly. Lena's seismic readings picked it up first, a massive distortion in the Earth's magnetic field, located approximately 200 kilometers west of Outpost 7. The distortion was unlike anything she'd ever seen, a swirling vortex of energy that seemed to defy the laws of physics. A reconnaissance team led by Eva was dispatched to investigate. They returned 3 days later, shaken and tight-lipped. They brought back samples of ice unlike anything we'd ever encountered. It was black, almost obsidian, and radiated an unnatural cold. "It's alien," Lena said, her voice barely a whisper as she examined the ice under a microscope. "The molecular structure, it's not of this Earth." The ice was also alive, or rather it contained something alive. Microscopic organisms, unlike anything known to science, swarmed within the black ice. They pulsed with an inner light, emitting a faint, rhythmic hum that resonated deep within my skull. That night the whispers became a chorus. The wind howled louder than ever, carrying the voices of countless beings, all chanting the same phrase over and over again. Tekelilai, tekelilai. The phrase burrowed into my mind, a seed of madness that began to sprout in the darkness. I tried to ignore it to focus on my work, but the whispers were relentless, inescapable. They infiltrated my dreams, turning them into nightmarish visions of a city consumed by shadows, a city where grotesque figures writhed in eternal torment. Sleep became a battleground, a constant struggle against the encroaching darkness. I started taking sleeping pills, but they only dulled the edge of the nightmares, failing to silence the whispers. Ben, the naive geologist, was the first to crack. He started rambling about ancient gods and forbidden knowledge, his eyes wide with terror. He claimed that the black ice was a gateway, a portal to another dimension. We tried to reassure him, to tell him it was just the isolation, the stress, but he wouldn't listen. One morning Ben was gone. His bed was empty, his belongings untouched. A single word was scrawled on the wall in his own blood: Tekelilai. Eva organized a search party, but I knew it was futile. The Antarctic was a vast, unforgiving wilderness. If Ben wanted to disappear, he could. But the thought of him out there, alone in the darkness, haunted by the whispers, chilled me to the bone. Ben's disappearance marked a turning point. The atmosphere in Outpost 7 shifted from unease to outright terror. We were no longer just scientists studying an anomaly. We were prey, trapped in a cosmic horror show with no escape in sight. Lena became even more withdrawn, spending hours poring over her seismic readings, her face pale and drawn. She claimed that the magnetic distortion was growing, expanding outwards, as if something was awakening deep within the ice. Eva, ever the pragmatist, focused on security, reinforcing the outpost's defenses, stockpiling weapons. She knew that whatever was coming, it wasn't going to be friendly. As for me, I found myself increasingly drawn to the black ice. I would spend hours staring at it, mesmerized by the microscopic organisms swarming within. They seemed to beckon me, to whisper promises of knowledge and power. The whispers in the wind grew louder, clearer, more insistent. They spoke of the city, the obsidian metropolis, and of the ancient beings that dwelled within. They offered me a glimpse into a reality beyond human comprehension, a reality that was both terrifying and exhilarating. I knew I was losing my mind. I could feel it slipping away, piece by piece, consumed by the encroaching darkness. But I couldn't stop. The whispers were too seductive, the lure of the unknown too powerful. One night, driven by an irresistible impulse, I took a sample of the black ice to my quarters. I placed it on my desk, under the dim glow of my desk lamp. The whispers intensified, filling the room, resonating within my skull. I closed my eyes, surrendering to the darkness, and then I saw it. The city. It rose before me, a colossal metropolis of obsidian and bone, stretching as far as the eye could see. Towering spires pierced the sky, their surfaces adorned with grotesque carvings. Grotesque figures writhed in the streets below, their bodies twisted into unnatural shapes. And in the center of the city, a colossal structure of black ice pulsed with an inner light. A light that beckoned me, called to me, promised me unimaginable power. Tekeli lie, tekeli lie. The whispers became a roar, drowning out all other thoughts, all other senses. I was no longer Aris Thorne, the glaciologist. I was a vessel, a conduit for something ancient, something powerful, something evil. I opened my eyes and stared at the black ice on my desk. It pulsed with an inner light, beckoning me closer. And I reached out my hand. Chapter 2: The Black Kiss. The moment my fingers brushed against the black ice, a jolt of pure, raw energy surged through my body. It felt like being struck by lightning, every nerve ending screaming in agony and ecstasy. My vision blurred, the room swirling around me in a vortex of colors and shapes. The whispers intensified, becoming a cacophony of voices, all vying for my attention. They spoke of forgotten gods, of ancient rituals, of unimaginable power. They promised me knowledge beyond human comprehension, dominion over realms beyond this reality. I felt myself changing, my consciousness expanding, merging with something vast and ancient. The boundaries of myself began to dissolve, my thoughts and emotions becoming intertwined with the collective consciousness of the entities trapped within the ice. I saw their faces, grotesque and alien, their eyes burning with an unholy light. They were the architects of the obsidian city, the rulers of a forgotten empire. They had been imprisoned within the ice for eons, waiting for an opportunity to escape, to reclaim their dominion over the world. And I, Aris Thorne, was their chosen vessel. The pain subsided, replaced by a profound sense of calm, a serene detachment from the petty concerns of human existence. I was no longer bound by fear, by doubt, by morality. I was free. I looked down at my hand, still resting on the black ice. The skin was changing, turning a sickly shade of gray, veins pulsing with an unnatural luminescence. The ice itself seemed to be merging with my flesh, spreading like a malignant cancer. I didn't care. The transformation was inevitable, a necessary step in my ascension. I was becoming something more than human, something divine. I tore myself away from the ice, compelled by a newfound purpose. I had a mission to fulfill, a destiny to embrace. The city awaited, and I was its herald. I left my quarters, leaving behind the remnants of my former life. My clothes felt foreign, my body alien. I moved with a newfound grace, my senses heightened, my mind razor sharp. The outpost was silent, the only sound the relentless howl of the wind. I could feel the presence of the others, Lena, Eva, the ghosts of Ben. They were obstacles, impediments to my grand design. They would have to be dealt with. I found Lena in the seismology lab, hunched over her instruments, her face illuminated by the flickering glow of the computer screens. She was muttering to herself, her voice barely audible above the wind. The distortion, it's accelerating, something coming. I stepped into the lab, my presence filling the room. Lena looked up, her eyes widening in alarm. "Aris, what's wrong? You look different." I smiled, a cold, emotionless expression that sent a shiver down her spine. "I've been enlightened, Lena. I've seen the truth, and I'm here to share it with you." I reached out my hand, the black ice pulsing beneath my skin. Lena recoiled, her eyes filled with terror. "Stay away from me. I know what you are." She grabbed a metal rod, brandishing it like a weapon. I chuckled, a low, guttural sound that echoed through the lab. "You can't stop what's coming, Lena. It's inevitable. You can only embrace it or be consumed by it." I lunged forward, grabbing the rod from her hand with ease. Lena screamed, struggling against my grip. I raised the rod above my head, my eyes burning with an unholy light. "Tekelilai." I brought the rod down, smashing it against Lena's skull. Her scream was cut short, her body crumpling to the floor. I stared down at her lifeless form, feeling nothing. No remorse, no regret. Only a sense of cold satisfaction. Lena was an obstacle removed. I left the lab, the wind carrying the echoes of her death scream. Eva was next. I could feel her presence, a flicker of defiance in the darkness. She was in the armory preparing for a fight. I found her standing behind a barricade of crates, a rifle clutched in her hands. Her eyes were narrowed, her face grim. "Aris," she said, her voice steady, "I knew something was wrong. You're not yourself." "I am myself, Eva," I replied, my voice devoid of emotion. "I am finally free." "Free? You're a puppet, Aris, a pawn of something evil." "Evil is a matter of perspective, Eva. I am simply embracing a higher power." "That power will destroy you, Aris, and it will destroy us all." "Only if you resist. Join me, Eva. Together we can rule this world." Eva spat on the floor. "I'd rather die." "Then you shall have your wish." Eva raised her rifle, firing a burst of bullets in my direction. I dodged the bullets with unnatural speed, my senses heightened, my reflexes honed. I closed the distance between us, moving faster than the human eye could follow. Eva fired again, but I deflected the bullets with my bare hands. The metal scorched my skin, but I felt no pain. I grabbed Eva by the throat, lifting her off the ground. She struggled against my grip, her face turning blue. "I'm sorry, Eva," I said, my voice barely a whisper, "but you chose this." I squeezed, crushing her windpipe. Her struggles subsided, her body going limp in my arms. I released her, letting her fall to the floor. Eva was another obstacle removed. With Lena and Eva gone, I was the only one left in Outpost 7. The outpost was mine, a staging ground for my grand design. I had to prepare for the arrival of the city, for the return of the Ancient Ones. I returned to my quarters, to the black ice that awaited me. I placed my hand upon it once more, feeling the energy surge through my body, the whispers filling my mind. "Tekelilai, Tekelilai." The transformation was complete. I was no longer Aris Thorne, the glaciologist. I was something else entirely. Something ancient, something powerful, something evil. I was the herald of the city, the harbinger of a new age. and the world would tremble before my power. I walked out into the Antarctic night, the wind howling in my ears, the black ice pulsing within my veins. The whispers guided me, leading me towards the anomaly, towards the source of the power that now coursed through my being. The city awaited, and I was coming home. Chapter 3: The Obsidian Pilgrimage. The journey to the anomaly was a blur of ice and darkness, a relentless march across the frozen wasteland. My enhanced senses allowed me to navigate the treacherous terrain with ease, my body immune to the biting cold. The whispers were my constant companions, guiding me, urging me onward. Outpost 7 dwindled behind me, a flickering beacon in the vast emptiness. I left it as a monument to my transformation, a testament to the insignificance of humanity in the face of cosmic forces. The knowledge and technology within it were no longer relevant to my purpose. The ancient ones had no need for such crude tools. The landscape changed as I approached the anomaly. The pristine white ice became streaked with black, the air growing heavy with a strange, metallic scent. The magnetic distortion intensified, warping reality around me, blurring the lines between the physical and the ethereal. I saw things in the periphery of my vision, fleeting glimpses of grotesque figures lurking in the shadows, their eyes burning with an unholy light. They were the denizens of the Obsidian City, the vanguard of the coming invasion. They were waiting for me. The ground beneath my feet began to tremble, a low, guttural rumble that resonated deep within my bones. Cracks appeared in the ice, widening into gaping chasms that revealed the black, alien depths below. I knew I was close. The anomaly manifested as a colossal vortex of black ice, swirling and pulsating with an inner light. It towered above me, a gateway to another dimension, a portal to the Obsidian City. The whispers reached a crescendo, drowning out all other thoughts, all other senses. Tekeli Tekeli. I felt an irresistible pull, a magnetic force drawing me towards the vortex. I stepped forward, my body trembling with anticipation. The air crackled with energy, the scent of ozone stinging my nostrils. As I drew closer, the vortex opened, revealing a glimpse of the city beyond. Towering spires of obsidian and bone pierced the sky, their surfaces adorned with grotesque carvings. Grotesque figures writhed in the streets below, their bodies twisted into unnatural shapes. The sight filled me with a sense of awe and terror, a profound understanding of the insignificance of humanity in the face of cosmic forces. I was a pawn, a vessel, a tool in a game beyond my comprehension. But I didn't care. I had embraced my destiny, and I would see it through to the end. I stepped into the vortex, surrendering to the darkness. The transition was instantaneous, a sudden shift from one reality to another. The biting cold of Antarctica was replaced by a humid, oppressive heat. The stark white landscape was replaced by the towering spires of the Obsidian City. I had arrived. The city was even more grotesque and terrifying than I had imagined. The buildings were constructed from a black, glassy material that seemed to absorb all light, casting long, ominous shadows. The streets were paved with bone, worn smooth by the passage of countless feet. The air was thick with the stench of decay and the sound of tortured screams. The figures that writhed in the streets were unlike anything I had ever seen, their bodies twisted into unnatural shapes, their faces contorted in eternal agony. They were the remnants of a fallen civilization, the victims of the Ancient One's cruelty. They were trapped in this city, forever bound to serve their masters' twisted desires. As I walked through the streets, the figures turned to stare at me, their eyes burning with a mixture of fear and hatred. They recoiled from my presence, as if sensing the power that coursed through my veins. I ignored them, my focus fixed on the colossal structure of black ice that dominated the city's skyline. It was the heart of the Ancient One's power, the source of their immortality. It was my destination. The structure pulsed with an inner light, beckoning me closer. As I approached, the ground beneath my feet began to tremble, the air growing thick with a strange metallic scent. The structure opened, revealing a doorway into the darkness beyond. I stepped inside, surrendering to the unknown. The interior was a vast, cavernous space, filled with pulsating veins of black ice. The air was thick with the scent of ozone and the sound of tortured screams. In the center of the space, a colossal figure of black ice sat upon a throne of bone. It was one of the Ancient Ones, a being of unimaginable power and malevolence. Its eyes burned with an unholy light, its face contorted in an eternal expression of rage. It turned to stare at me, its gaze piercing my soul. I felt a surge of terror, a primal fear that threatened to overwhelm me. But I stood my ground, my body trembling with a mixture of fear and anticipation. I had come too far to turn back now. The Ancient One raised its hand, beckoning me closer. I stepped forward, my heart pounding in my chest. "Welcome, Aris Thorne," it said, its voice a low, guttural rumble that echoed through the cavern. "We have been waiting for you." I bowed my head, my voice barely a whisper. "I am here to serve." "You have proven yourself worthy," the Ancient One said. "You have embraced the darkness, and you have sacrificed all that you held dear." "I have done what was necessary," I replied. "Now you shall be rewarded," the Ancient One said. "You shall be granted the power to reshape this world in our image." It raised its hand once more, and a beam of black light shot forth, striking me in the chest. I felt a surge of energy coursing through my veins, transforming me, empowering me. The pain was excruciating, but I endured it, knowing that it was a necessary step in my ascension. I was becoming something more than human, something divine. The transformation was complete. I was no longer Aris Thorne, the glaciologist. I was a vessel of the Ancient Ones, a harbinger of a new age. I knelt before the Ancient One, my voice filled with reverence. "What is your command?" The Ancient One smiled, a cruel, emotionless expression that sent a shiver down my spine. "Go forth, my servant," it said, "and bring this world to its knees." Chapter 4: The Tainted Earth. With the Ancient One's command echoing in my mind, I left the Obsidian City, returning to the Antarctic wasteland through the swirling vortex of black ice. Stepping back onto the frozen surface felt like a breath of fresh air, even though the air itself was tainted with the anomaly's unnatural chill. I was no longer the hesitant scientist, driven by curiosity and a thirst for knowledge. I was a conduit of immense, terrifying power, my purpose clear and unwavering, to prepare the world for the return of the Ancient Ones. And the first step was to spread their influence, to taint the earth with their essence. I closed my eyes, focusing my will, channeling the power that now surged within me. The ground beneath my feet began to tremble, cracks spreading outwards like spiderwebs across the ice. The black ice itself began to proliferate, consuming the pristine white landscape, spreading like a virus across the frozen continent. The transformation was rapid, irreversible. The Antarctic was becoming an extension of the Obsidian City, a foothold for the Ancient Ones in this reality. The whispers grew louder, carried on the wind, spreading the madness to any who dared to listen. I opened my eyes, gazing upon the tainted landscape. It was beautiful in a twisted, horrifying way, a testament to the power of the Ancient Ones, a glimpse of the future that awaited the world. My next task was to spread the infection beyond Antarctica. I needed a means of transportation, a way to carry the black ice to the far corners of the globe, and I knew just the place to find it. Outpost 7. I had abandoned it, deemed it irrelevant to my grand design, but it still held valuable resources, equipment that could be repurposed for my needs, and it was conveniently located, a short distance from the anomaly. I set out towards the outpost, my pace relentless, my purpose unwavering. The wind howled in my ears, carrying the whispers of the Ancient Ones, urging me onward. As I approached Outpost 7, I sensed a presence, a flicker of resistance in the darkness. Someone was there, someone who had survived my purge. Intrigued, I altered my course, heading towards the source of the disturbance. I found it in the seismology lab, the same lab where I had silenced Lena. A figure was hunched over the instruments, their back to me. They were frantically typing on the keyboard, their movements desperate. I stepped into the lab, my presence filling the room. The figure turned around, their face pale and drawn. It was Ben. He looked gaunt, his eyes bloodshot, his clothes tattered and torn. He was a shadow of his former self, a broken husk haunted by the whispers. "Aris," he said, his voice barely a whisper, "you've changed." "I have evolved, Ben," I replied, my voice devoid of emotion. "I have embraced my destiny." "Destiny? You're insane, Aris. You're destroying everything." "I am creating something new, Ben, something beautiful, something divine." "Divine? You're serving monsters, Aris. They'll consume you just like they consumed the others." "The others were weak, Ben. They resisted. You don't have to share their fate." I reached out my hand, the black ice pulsing beneath my skin. Ben recoiled, his eyes filled with terror. "Stay away from me. I know what you are." He grabbed a metal rod, brandishing it like a weapon, just like Lena. "You can't stop what's coming, Ben. It's inevitable. You can only embrace it or be consumed by it." I lunged forward, disarming him with ease. Ben screamed, struggling against my grip. "Please, Aris, don't do this. I can help you. We can stop them together." "It's too late for that, Ben. You've heard the whispers. You know the truth." "The whispers are lies, Aris. They're trying to trick you. Don't listen to them." I ignored him, my mind focused on my purpose. Ben was an obstacle, a distraction. He had to be removed. I raised the rod above my head, my eyes burning with an unholy light. "Tekeli lai." I brought the rod down, smashing it against Ben's skull. His scream was cut short, his body crumpling to the floor. I stared down at his lifeless form, feeling a twinge of something, regret, remorse. I couldn't be sure. The emotions were fleeting, suppressed by the power that coursed through my veins. Ben was another obstacle removed, but he had planted a seed of doubt in my mind, a flicker of resistance in the darkness. I ignored it, pushing it aside, focusing on my purpose. I had a mission to fulfill, a destiny to embrace. I left the lab, the wind carrying the echoes of Ben's death scream. I made my way to the hangar, where the outpost's transport aircraft was stored. The aircraft was a modified C-130 Hercules, equipped with skis for landing on the ice. It was old but reliable, capable of carrying a significant payload over long distances. I inspected the aircraft, ensuring that it was in working order. I then began to load it with containers of black ice, carefully sealed to prevent contamination. As I worked, the whispers grew louder, more insistent. They spoke of my destiny, of the power that awaited me. They urged me to hurry, to spread the infection, to prepare the world for the return of the Ancient Ones. I ignored the seed of doubt planted by Ben, focusing on the task at hand. I was a vessel of the Ancient Ones, and I would not fail them. Once the aircraft was loaded, I climbed into the cockpit, preparing for takeoff. The controls felt familiar, my hands moving instinctively, guided by the Ancient One's will. I started the engines, the roar of the turbines shattering the silence of the Antarctic night. The aircraft shuddered, straining against its moorings. I released the brakes, and the aircraft began to move, gliding across the ice towards the horizon. The wind howled in my ears, carrying the whispers of the Ancient Ones, urging me onward. I lifted the aircraft into the air, soaring above the tainted landscape. Outpost 7 dwindled below me, a flickering beacon in the vast emptiness. I set course for the outside world, my heart filled with a mixture of dread and anticipation. The Ancient Ones were coming, and I was their harbinger. The world would never be the same. Chapter 5: Seeds of Corruption. The flight was long and arduous, a constant battle against fatigue and the whispers that threatened to overwhelm my mind. The C-130 lumbered through the sky, a solitary speck against the vast expanse of the heavens. I kept my focus on the task at hand, delivering the black ice to its designated targets. My first destination was a remote research facility nestled in the heart of the Amazon rainforest. I chose it for its isolation, its scientific credibility, and its proximity to a major urban center. The facility was studying the effects of climate change on the rainforest ecosystem, a noble endeavor that would soon be twisted to serve a far more sinister purpose. As I approached the Amazon basin, the landscape transformed from a barren wasteland to a vibrant tapestry of green. The air grew thick with humidity, the scent of vegetation filling my nostrils. The change was jarring, a stark contrast to the frozen desolation of Antarctica. I located the research facility with ease, a cluster of buildings hidden amongst the dense foliage. I circled overhead, scanning the area for any signs of activity. The facility appeared to be deserted, the only sound the drone of insects and the calls of exotic birds. I landed the aircraft on a makeshift airstrip carved out of the jungle, the wheels sinking slightly into the soft earth. I shut down the engines, the silence that followed broken only by the whispers in my mind. I unloaded several containers of black ice, carefully concealing them beneath tarpaulins. I then set about disabling the aircraft's communication systems, ensuring that no distress signals could be sent. Once the preparations were complete, I left the research facility, melting back into the jungle. I left the black ice to work its insidious magic, knowing that it would soon corrupt the facility's researchers, twisting their minds and bodies to serve the Ancient One's will. My next destination was a sprawling metropolis on the coast of India. I chose it for its dense population, its poverty, and its vulnerability to disease. The city was a breeding ground for chaos, a fertile ground for the Ancient One's influence to take root. As I approached the city, the sky grew thick with smog, the air heavy with the stench of sewage and burning garbage. The landscape transformed from a lush jungle to a concrete jungle, a sprawling mass of buildings stretching as far as the eye could see. I landed the aircraft at a deserted airfield on the outskirts of the city, the wheels rattling over the cracked pavement. I shut down the engines, the silence that followed broken by the cacophony of urban noise. I unloaded several more containers of black ice, concealing them amongst the piles of garbage that littered the airfield. I then set about disabling the airfield's security systems, ensuring that no one would interfere with my plans. Once the preparations were complete, I left the airfield, melting back into the city. I left the black ice to work its insidious magic, knowing that it would soon corrupt the city's inhabitants, spreading the Ancient One's influence like a plague. My final destination was a bustling financial center in the heart of Europe. I chose it for its wealth, its power, and its influence on global affairs. The city was a nexus of control, a key strategic point in the Ancient One's plan to dominate the world. As I approached the city, the sky grew clear and bright, the air crisp and clean. The landscape transformed from a chaotic slum to a pristine metropolis, a gleaming testament to human ingenuity and ambition. I landed the aircraft at a private airfield on the outskirts of the city, the wheels gliding smoothly across the manicured tarmac. I shut down the engines, the silence that followed broken only by the whispers in my mind. I unloaded the remaining containers of black ice, concealing them beneath layers of corporate branding and bureaucratic paperwork. I then set about disabling the airfield's security systems, ensuring that no one would suspect the true nature of my cargo. Once the preparations were complete, I left the airfield, melting back into the city. I left the black ice to work its insidious magic, knowing that it would soon corrupt the city's elite, twisting their minds and bodies to serve the Ancient One's will. With my task complete, I returned to the aircraft, preparing for my next assignment. The world was now tainted, the seeds of corruption planted in fertile ground. It was only a matter of time before the Ancient One's influence spread like wildfire, consuming everything in its path. As I soared back into the sky, the whispers grew louder, more insistent. They spoke of my destiny, of the power that awaited me. They urged me to continue to spread the infection, to prepare the world for the return of the Ancient Ones. I smiled, a cold, emotionless expression that sent a shiver down my spine. I was a vessel of the Ancient Ones, and I would not fail them. The world would never be the same. Chapter 6: Echoes in the Machine. My journey across the globe had been a whirlwind of clandestine operations, each drop of black ice a poisoned seed sown in the fertile soil of human society. I had moved with a cold efficiency, driven by the Ancient One's will, my actions guided by the whispers that had become an intrinsic part of my being. My next objective was not a physical location, but something far more abstract: the Internet. The sprawling network of interconnected computers was a perfect conduit for the Ancient One's influence, a means of spreading their insidious corruption on a scale previously unimaginable. I established a secure base of operations in a remote, abandoned server farm. The facility was a ghost town, a relic of a bygone era of technological optimism. The servers were outdated, but they were still functional, and I had the knowledge and resources to bring them back to life. I spent weeks immersed in the digital world, exploring the depths of the Internet, mapping its vulnerabilities, identifying its key nodes of control. The whispers guided me, revealing hidden pathways, unlocking forbidden knowledge. I began by creating a virus, a digital plague that would infect computers across the globe. The virus was designed to spread quickly, silently, and undetectably, its sole purpose to transmit the whispers of the Ancient Ones. The virus was not a typical piece of malware. It didn't steal data or crash systems or demand ransom. Instead, it subtly altered the user's perception of reality, planting seeds of paranoia, fear, and distrust. It amplified the whispers, making them more insistent, more seductive. As the virus spread, I began to monitor its progress, tracking its infection rate, analyzing its effects on the population. The results were encouraging. People began to experience strange phenomena: glitches in their computers, distorted images on their screens, disembodied voices whispering in their ears. They started to exhibit unusual behavior: paranoia, anxiety, irrational anger. The whispers, amplified by the virus, began to reach more and more people. The Internet became a breeding ground for madness, a digital echo chamber of fear and suspicion. I established a series of anonymous online personas, using them to sow discord, spread misinformation, and incite violence. I targeted governments, corporations, and religious organizations, exploiting their vulnerabilities, manipulating their actions. My online personas were masters of deception, adept at playing on people's fears and insecurities. They could create false narratives, spread rumors, and incite riots with ease. I used these personas to create chaos, to destabilize society, to pave the way for the Ancient One's arrival. I knew that the more fractured and chaotic the world became, the easier it would be for them to take control. I orchestrated a series of cyber attacks, targeting critical infrastructure, power grids, water systems, communication networks. I brought cities to a standstill, plunged nations into darkness, crippled economies. I witnessed the collapse of social order, the breakdown of civilization, the descent into anarchy. It was a horrifying spectacle, but I felt no remorse. I was simply fulfilling my purpose, carrying out the Ancient One's will. As the world descended into chaos, the whispers grew louder, more insistent. They spoke of the coming storm, of the Ancient One's triumph, of the new world that would rise from the ashes. I could feel their presence growing stronger, their influence spreading across the globe. They were no longer distant entities, trapped within the ice. They were beginning to break free, to cross the threshold, to enter our reality. The virus continued to spread, infecting more and more computers, twisting more and more minds. The internet, once a symbol of human connection, had become a weapon of cosmic horror, a tool for the Ancient One's conquest. I smiled, a cold, emotionless expression. My work was far from complete, but I was pleased with the progress. The world was ready. I felt a powerful surge of energy, a premonition of the coming storm. It was time for the next phase, the final push. The Ancient Ones were ready to break free, to enter our world and claim their dominion. And I, their faithful servant, would be there to welcome them. Chapter 7: The Awakening. The chaos I had sown across the globe served as a dissonant symphony, a prelude to the awakening. The Ancient Ones, stirring in their icy prisons, were about to breach the veil between worlds. The whispers had grown into a deafening roar, a chorus of anticipation that resonated within my very bones. My attention shifted back to the Antarctic, to the anomaly that served as the gateway. The magnetic distortion had intensified, warping reality to a breaking point. The black ice was proliferating at an alarming rate, consuming the continent, transforming it into a mirror of the Obsidian City. I returned to Outpost 7, no longer a clandestine operator but a herald of the coming storm. The facility was a ruin, a testament to my transformation. The bodies of Lena and Ben lay where I had left them, frozen in grotesque poses, their eyes staring blankly at the ceiling. I ignored them, my focus fixed on the anomaly. I could feel its presence, a pulsating vortex of energy that beckoned me closer. I had to prepare the way, to ensure a smooth transition for the Ancient Ones. I accessed the outpost's remaining equipment, repurposing it to amplify the anomaly's power. I rigged the communication systems to broadcast a signal, a beacon that would guide the Ancient Ones to our world. I modified the power generators to channel energy into the vortex, widening the gateway, weakening the veil. As I worked, the whispers intensified, urging me to hurry to complete my task. I could feel the Ancient Ones growing impatient, their power surging, their influence spreading. The sky above Outpost 7 began to crackle with energy, lightning flashing across the horizon. The air grew thick with the scent of ozone, the ground trembling beneath my feet. The anomaly reached a critical point, the vortex expanding rapidly, engulfing the entire outpost. The black ice began to pulse with an unearthly light, illuminating the landscape in an eerie glow. The veil between worlds was breaking. I stepped back, watching as the vortex tore a hole in reality, revealing a glimpse of the obsidian city beyond. The towering spires and grotesque figures were now clearly visible, their presence palpable, their power overwhelming. The Ancient Ones were coming. The first to emerge were the vanguard grotesque creatures of obsidian and bone, their bodies twisted into unnatural shapes, their eyes burning with an unholy light. They poured forth from the vortex, their numbers endless, their purpose clear, to claim this world for their masters. They moved with unnatural speed and ferocity, tearing through the landscape, consuming everything in their path. The black ice pulsed beneath their feet, spreading their influence, transforming the world in their image. More and more creatures emerged from the vortex, each more horrifying than the last. They were the nightmares of humanity made flesh, the embodiment of cosmic horror. Finally, the Ancient Ones themselves began to emerge. They were colossal beings of black ice, their faces contorted in eternal expressions of rage, their bodies radiating an aura of unimaginable power. They surveyed the landscape, their eyes burning with satisfaction. They had returned. I knelt before them, my voice filled with reverence. "Welcome, masters. I have prepared the way." The Ancient Ones turned to stare at me, their gaze piercing my soul. They acknowledged my presence, their faces softening slightly, their power flowing through me. "You have served us well, Aris Thorne," one of the Ancient Ones said, its voice a low, guttural rumble that echoed through the wasteland. "You shall be rewarded." It raised its hand, and a beam of black light shot forth, striking me in the chest. I felt a surge of energy coursing through my veins, transforming me, empowering me. The pain was excruciating, but I endured it, knowing that it was a necessary step in my ascension. I was becoming something more than human, something divine. The transformation was complete. I was no longer Aris Thorne, the glaciologist. I was a vessel of the Ancient Ones, a harbinger of a new age. I stood before them, my body trembling with a mixture of awe and terror. The Ancient Ones had arrived, and the world would never be the same. The invasion had begun. The creatures of the Obsidian City spread out across the globe, carrying the Ancient Ones' influence with them. They attacked cities, destroyed infrastructure, and corrupted the minds of the human population. The world was descending into chaos, a nightmare world ruled by ancient gods and grotesque monsters. The whispers filled the air, driving people to madness, turning them against each other. The Ancient Ones were claiming their dominion, and humanity was powerless to resist. I watched the destruction unfold, my heart filled with a sense of cold satisfaction. I had done my part, I had fulfilled my purpose. The ancient ones turned to stare at me, their faces filled with gratitude. "You have earned your place by our side, Aris Thorne," one of them said. "You shall rule with us in this new world that we have created." I bowed my head, my voice filled with reverence. "I am honored to serve." The Ancient One smiled, a cruel, emotionless expression that sent a shiver down my spine. "Come, Aris Thorne," one of them said, "the world awaits." And with that, we set out to conquer the world, to reshape it in the image of the Obsidian City, to usher in a new age of cosmic horror. Chapter 8: The Reign of Whispers. The world was now a canvas upon which the Ancient Ones painted their twisted vision. The initial chaos had subsided, replaced by an eerie, oppressive order. The surviving humans were either slaves, twisted into grotesque parodies of their former selves, or hunted as sport by the denizens of the Obsidian City. Cities that had once been beacons of civilization were now haunted ruins, monuments to the Ancient One's power. I walked alongside my masters, surveying the devastation with a detached sense of satisfaction. The whispers had become a constant drone in my mind, a chorus of praise and approval. I was no longer Aris Thorne, the man, but a vessel, an extension of the Ancient One's will. My role was to oversee the transition, to ensure that the new world order was maintained. I commanded the grotesque creatures, directing their actions, enforcing the Ancient One's laws. I was their enforcer, their administrator, their loyal servant. The remaining pockets of human resistance were quickly crushed. The Ancient Ones possessed technology far beyond human comprehension, weapons capable of obliterating entire cities in a single blast. There was no hope of victory, only the inevitability of defeat. Some humans, driven mad by the whispers, embraced the Ancient Ones, offering themselves as sacrifices, vying for a position of favor in the New World Order. The Ancient Ones rewarded their loyalty with twisted gifts, grotesque mutations, enhanced strength, and a complete loss of humanity. These favored humans became my lieutenants, my enforcers, my spies. They helped me to maintain control, to hunt down the remaining pockets of resistance, to ensure that the Ancient One's will was carried out. I established a network of communication, using the same technology I had once used to spread the virus. But now, the internet served a different purpose: to broadcast the Ancient One's propaganda, to suppress dissent, to monitor the population. Every device, every computer, every smartphone became a listening post, a tool for surveillance and control. The Ancient Ones could see and hear everything, their power absolute. I established a system of rewards and punishments, designed to incentivize obedience and discourage rebellion. Those who served the Ancient Ones were granted privileges, access to food, shelter, and protection. Those who resisted were subjected to unspeakable horrors. The Ancient Ones reveled in the suffering of humanity, their twisted minds finding amusement in the pain and despair of their slaves. They staged elaborate games, forcing humans to fight to the death for their amusement. They conducted grotesque experiments, twisting human bodies into unnatural shapes. I witnessed these atrocities with a detached indifference, my emotions suppressed by the Ancient One's influence. I was simply carrying out my orders, fulfilling my purpose. But sometimes, a flicker of the old Aris Thorne would surface, a brief moment of clarity amidst the madness. I would catch a glimpse of the horror that I had unleashed, the suffering that I had caused. These moments were fleeting, quickly suppressed by the Ancient One's influence, but they were enough to remind me that I was not entirely lost, that a part of me still remembered what it meant to be human. I began to question my purpose, to doubt the Ancient One's motives. Was this really the new world order that I had envisioned? Was this the destiny that I had embraced? The whispers grew louder, more insistent, sensing my wavering loyalty. They warned me of the consequences of disobedience, of the horrors that awaited those who defied the Ancient Ones. I tried to ignore them, to focus on my duties, to suppress my doubts. But the questions persisted, nagging at the edges of my mind. One day, I stumbled upon a hidden chamber, a relic of the old world that had been preserved by one of my human lieutenants. The chamber contained books, paintings, and music from before the invasion, artifacts of human culture and creativity. I spent hours in the chamber, immersing myself in the beauty and wonder of human art. I rediscovered the emotions that I had suppressed: joy, sorrow, love, hope. The Ancient Ones sensed my absence, their whispers growing angry and threatening. They demanded my presence, summoning me to their throne room. I hesitated, torn between my loyalty to the Ancient Ones and my newfound appreciation for humanity. But I knew that I could not defy them, not yet. I left the chamber, my heart heavy with sorrow. I made my way to the throne room, steeling myself for the confrontation that awaited me. The Ancient Ones were waiting, their faces contorted in expressions of rage. They sensed my wavering loyalty, and they were not pleased. "Aris Thorne," one of the Ancient Ones said, its voice a low, guttural rumble that echoed through the throne room. "You have been neglecting your duties. Your loyalty is in question." I knelt before them, my voice trembling with fear. "I apologize, masters. I have simply been reflecting." "Reflection is a dangerous pastime, Aris Thorne," the Ancient One said. "It can lead to doubt, and doubt can lead to betrayal." "I would never betray you, masters," I replied, my voice barely a whisper. "We shall see," the Ancient One said. "You will be tested, and if you fail, you will suffer the consequences." Chapter 9: The Price of Defiance. The test was immediate and brutal. One of my human lieutenants, a woman named Anya, was brought before me, bound and gagged. Anya had been a fervent supporter of the Ancient Ones, a zealous enforcer and a trusted confidant. But she had also, it seemed, developed her own doubts, her own flicker of humanity. I knew this because I had, in secret, observed her interactions with other humans, witnessed her silent moments of contemplation. "You must prove your loyalty, Aris," the Ancient One said, its voice devoid of warmth. "You must demonstrate your willingness to serve us above all else." A wave of nausea washed over me. I knew what was coming. The Ancient Ones had no compassion, no mercy. My stomach churned as the cold reality settled in. The punishment for my supposed transgressions was now Anya. You must choose, the Ancient One continued. You can either embrace your destiny and eliminate this imperfection, or you can join her in her weakness. The choice was, in a way, simple: obey and live or defy and die. But it was also the most agonizing choice I had ever faced. Anya's eyes, despite the gag, locked onto mine. There was a flicker of recognition, a desperate plea for understanding. I looked at her, at the fear etched on her face, and I thought of the beautiful artifacts, of the art and music that had reminded me of the world I was helping destroy. I saw the countless faces of the people I had condemned, and I felt a surge of something I hadn't felt in a long time: remorse. But beneath the remorse, a cold voice whispered, a voice that echoed with the Ancient One's power, the voice of reason. Failure to comply meant death. To resist would bring only agony. I clenched my fists, trying to suppress the conflicting emotions, the echoes of the old Aris Thorne. My mind spun, the whispers vying for dominance, pulling me in opposing directions. Then I made my decision. I slowly raised my hand, my eyes fixed on Anya. My voice, when I spoke, was a mere whisper, barely audible over the howling wind that now seemed to emanate from the Ancient Ones. I will serve. The Ancient One let out a sound that was almost a chuckle, a sound that chilled me to my very core. Excellent. Prove your loyalty, Aris Thorne. Show us your commitment. Without hesitation, I reached out, my hand trembling slightly. I brought my hand toward Anya's throat, feeling the familiar surge of power coursing through my veins. As my fingers closed around Anya's neck, I felt the life draining from her eyes, the blood poolsing under my fingers. The Ancient One's approval surged through me, a cold wave that extinguished all traces of doubt. I squeezed. Her body went limp. I held her for a moment longer, then dropped her to the floor. "Well done, Aris Thorne," the Ancient One said, its voice filled with satisfaction. "You have proven your loyalty. You have embraced the darkness." I knelt before them, my heart heavy with sorrow. I had sacrificed a part of myself. I had destroyed a flicker of hope, but I had survived. "What is my next task?" I asked, my voice devoid of emotion. "Your next task is to hunt down and eliminate any remaining pockets of resistance," the Ancient One said. "We cannot allow any dissent. We must ensure that the New World Order is maintained." My stomach churned again. I was not given time to process. My orders were explicit: to hunt down a group of humans who had been working in secret, trying to find a way to fight back, to restore humanity. The whispers provided location and target information. A hidden settlement, deep within what was once the Swiss Alps, was harboring the seed of rebellion. I departed immediately, leading a cadre of the creatures from the Obsidian City. They were eager for the hunt, their grotesque forms moving with unnatural speed and aggression. The journey was swift. Reaching the Alps, the mountain tops were no longer capped with snow, but the black ice was spreading, claiming this once magnificent peak. The air was thin, but the creatures and I did not need to breathe. We found the hidden settlement. It was a small village, nestled deep within a valley, far from the devastation of the cities. The villagers were ordinary people, farmers, artisans, and scholars. They had been living in peace, unaware of the horrors that awaited them. We descended upon them, our attack swift and brutal. The creatures of the obsidian city unleashed their fury, slaughtering the villagers without mercy. I watched the carnage unfold, my heart a stone in my chest. During the chaos, I spotted the leader of the rebellion. He was an older man with a kind face and piercing eyes. He tried to stand and fight, but was quickly overwhelmed by my obsidian guard. He stared directly at me, his eyes filled with hatred and despair. "You were once human," he spat at me. "What have you become?" His words, though tinged with desperation, struck a raw nerve within me. I did not reply. I raised my hand, and a beam of black light shot forth, striking him in the chest. His body erupted in flames, and he was consumed by fire. I then turned my attention to the village. The slaughter was complete, the rebellion extinguished. As I stood amidst the carnage, I felt a flicker of something I couldn't name. Was it satisfaction or more sorrow? I truly did not know. I had done what I was ordered, but the price of my actions and the sacrifice that I had made weighed heavily upon my soul. My own heart was a wasteland, just like the world I helped make. Chapter 10: The Seed of Dissent. The memory of the slaughter in the Alps clung to me like a shroud, a constant reminder of the depths to which I had sunk. The Ancient Ones, pleased with my obedience, showered me with praise, granting me even greater authority. But their approval was a hollow victory, a cold comfort in the face of my growing despair. The more I served them, the more I hated them. The more power I wielded, the more I longed for release. The whispers, once seductive and guiding, now felt like chains, binding me to a destiny I no longer desired. A seed of dissent, planted by the victims of my actions, had taken root in my heart. It was a fragile thing, easily crushed, but it refused to be extinguished. It grew stronger with each act of cruelty I was forced to commit, each life I was forced to destroy. I began to seek out those moments of solace, the glimpses of beauty that had sparked my initial rebellion. I revisited the hidden chamber, immersing myself in the art and music of the old world. I found a strange comfort in these relics, a reminder that humanity was capable of something more than mindless obedience and brutal violence. During my exploration, I found something hidden behind one of the paintings was a small metal box. I opened it. Inside was a small note, written in a shaky hand. "If you find this, there is still hope. Find others and learn the truth from their lips. Only then will this have meaning." This box, this note, gave me direction and courage. I would use my status and the lack of oversight to seek others like me. The Ancient Ones, sensing my distraction, grew increasingly suspicious. They tightened their control, monitoring my movements, scrutinizing my thoughts. The whispers became more forceful, more threatening, trying to suppress my growing rebellion. I had to be careful. I had to conceal my true intentions, to play the part of a loyal servant while secretly plotting their downfall. It was a dangerous game, but I had no choice. My soul, and perhaps the world depended on it. Using my status and access, I started subtly altering communications, diverting resources, and disrupting the Ancient One's plans. These acts of sabotage were small, insignificant in the grand scheme of things, but they were a start. They were a sign that I was not entirely under their control. I also began to seek out other humans who showed signs of resistance, those who had not been completely broken by the Ancient One's influence. I approached them cautiously, testing their loyalty, gauging their willingness to fight back. I found a few willing to join me. They were a motley crew, former soldiers, scientists, and artists, all united by a shared hatred of the Ancient Ones and a longing for the world that had been lost. One was a communications officer, former, who had used the distraction to listen in and document communications. We met in secret in the shadows, plotting our rebellion. We knew that the odds were stacked against us, that the Ancient Ones were far more powerful than we could ever hope to be. But we refused to give up. We would fight for our freedom, even if it meant sacrificing our lives. Our first act of defiance was to sabotage the Ancient One's communication network, disrupting their ability to control their forces. We also began to spread information about the Ancient One's weaknesses, their vulnerabilities, their vulnerabilities. The Ancient Ones, sensing our growing resistance, retaliated swiftly and brutally. They unleashed their creatures upon us, hunting us down, torturing and killing those who dared to defy them. Our numbers dwindled, our resources diminished, but our resolve remained strong. We would not be broken, we would not be silenced. I was forced to make impossible choices, sacrificing some to save others. I began to change slowly, making the choices needed to survive. I was no longer merely a servant or resistance, but a general, a protector, a leader. During this time, I received information from the officer. In what became the art room was once a laboratory, and here, the whispers are suppressed. I began to revisit the outpost from time to time, seeking refuge from the Ancient One's influence. The artifacts, the music, and the box were a sanctuary, a reminder of the world that I was fighting to save. There were a few relics I was able to hold on to. The memories and the box were the two things that I held the most dear. These things kept me and all of the growing rebellion going. One night, as I sat alone in the hidden chamber, a wave of despair washed over me. I had failed to save Anya, I had failed to prevent the slaughter in the Alps, and I was failing to protect my fellow rebels. The Ancient Ones were too powerful, too ruthless. We had no chance. I picked up the small note, rereading the words that had given me so much hope. If you find this, there is still hope. Find others and learn the truth from their lips. Only then will this have meaning. The words resonated within me, filling me with a renewed sense of purpose. I was not alone. There were others who shared my doubts, others who were willing to fight back. I stood up, my heart filled with determination. I would not give up. I would not surrender. I would fight the Ancient Ones until my last breath. I stepped out of the art room, ready to face the darkness, ready to lead my rebels into battle. But as I did, I saw something that made my blood run cold. Standing in the doorway were two of the obsidian creatures, their eyes burning with an unholy light. They had found me. Chapter 11. The Labyrinth of Shadows. The obsidian creatures were silent, unmoving sentinels, their presence radiating an aura of menace that sent a shiver down my spine. The Ancient Ones knew. My rebellion had been discovered. There was no time for escape, no time for preparation. I was trapped, exposed, and at the mercy of my former masters. But I refused to surrender. I had come too far, sacrificed too much to simply give up. I would fight, even if it meant dying on my feet. I drew my weapon, a salvaged energy pistol, and aimed it at the creatures. They did not flinch, their eyes fixed on me, their bodies poised for attack. "I will not go quietly," I said, my voice filled with defiance. "I will not be your puppet any longer." The creatures did not respond, but they moved, closing the distance between us with unnatural speed. Their limbs were bladed, their claws sharp, their intent deadly. I fired the pistol, unleashing a torrent of energy that struck the creatures in their chests. They staggered, momentarily stunned, but they did not fall. They were far more resilient than I had anticipated. They lunged at me, their bladed limbs slashing through the air. I dodged their attacks, moving with a speed and agility I didn't know I possessed. The room was small, confined, offering little room for maneuver. I was forced to fight in close quarters, relying on my instincts, my training, and my sheer desperation. The creatures were relentless, their attacks coming from all directions. I parried their blows, dodged their thrusts, and returned fire whenever I could. But I was outnumbered, outmatched, and slowly being worn down. My body was bruised and battered, my energy depleted. I knew that I could not win this fight, but I could buy time, time for my rebels to escape, time for them to carry on the fight. I focused my energy, channeling the power that still resided within me. I unleashed a final blast of energy, striking the creatures with all my might. They were thrown back, momentarily stunned. I used the opportunity to escape, darting through the doorway and into the corridors beyond. The creatures pursued me, their heavy footsteps echoing through the corridors. I ran as fast as I could, my lungs burning, my muscles screaming. I knew that I could not outrun them. They were faster, stronger, and more relentless than I could ever hope to be. But I could lead them away from the hidden chamber, away from my rebels. I ran through the corridors, navigating the labyrinthine structure, relying on my knowledge of the facility. I knew every nook and cranny, every hidden passage, every secret route. I led the creatures on a wild goose chase, through deserted laboratories, abandoned workshops, and forgotten storage rooms. I used the environment to my advantage, setting traps, creating distractions, and slowing their pursuit. But the creatures were persistent, their pursuit unrelenting. They were closing in, their presence looming, their intent palpable. I reached a dead end, a locked door blocking my path. I turned to face my pursuers, my body trembling with exhaustion. The creatures were upon me, their eyes burning with an unholy light. They were ready to deliver the final blow. I closed my eyes, preparing for the end. But then something unexpected happened. A burst of energy erupted from behind me, striking the creatures with devastating force. They staggered, momentarily stunned, their bodies convulsing. I opened my eyes and saw that the door had been blasted open. Standing in the doorway were my rebels, their weapons drawn, their faces filled with determination. They had come to rescue me. "Aris, come with us," one of them shouted. "We have to get out of here." I hesitated, torn between my desire to escape and my duty to protect my rebels. The creatures were still a threat, even if they were stunned. "Go, get out of here," I yelled. "I'll hold them off." They protested, their faces filled with concern. But they knew that I was right. They could not afford to stay and fight. Their mission was too important. With a final glance, they turned and fled, disappearing into the corridors beyond. I turned to face the creatures, my heart filled with a strange mixture of fear and relief. They were recovering, their eyes burning with renewed intensity. I knew that this was the end, but I would not go down without a fight. I would hold them off for as long as I could, giving my rebels a chance to escape, a chance to carry on the fight. I raised my weapon, preparing for the final battle. But as I did, I saw something that made my blood run cold. Behind the creatures in the distance, I saw the Ancient Ones. They were approaching, their colossal forms looming, their power overwhelming. They had come to claim me. Chapter 12: The Obsidian Embrace. The Ancient One's presence filled the facility, a palpable weight that crushed the air from my lungs. The obsidian creatures, once terrifying, now seemed like mere puppets, their power insignificant in comparison to the cosmic horror that approached. Hope, a fragile ember I had so desperately clung to, threatened to be snuffed out entirely. I knew this was it. My rebellion, my fleeting moments of defiance had led me to this precipice. There was no escape, no clever strategy that could overcome the might of the beings before me. This was the end of Aris Thorne, the reluctant servant, the hesitant rebel. Yet even in the face of annihilation, a strange sense of calm settled over me. I had fought, I had resisted, I had, in my own small way, made a stand against the darkness. That, I realized, was enough. The Ancient Ones stopped before me, their towering forms casting long, grotesque shadows. Their eyes, pools of ancient malice, bored into my soul, stripping away the last vestiges of my defenses. "You have failed us, Aris Thorne," one of them boomed, the voice echoing through the facility, shaking the very foundations of the structure. "You have betrayed our trust. You have chosen to defy our will." I met their gaze, my heart filled with a strange mixture of fear and defiance. "I have chosen to be free," I replied, my voice surprisingly steady. "I have chosen to be human." The Ancient One let out a sound that was almost a sigh, a sound filled with ancient sorrow. "You do not understand, Aris Thorne. There is no freedom, only servitude. There is no humanity, only chaos." "There is hope," I countered, clinging to that fragile ember. "There is always hope." The Ancient One scoffed. "Hope is a delusion, a weakness that we have purged from your kind. You will be corrected, Aris Thorne. Your rebellion will be extinguished, and you will serve us once more." They reached out, their colossal hands engulfing me in a chilling embrace. The black ice began to spread across my skin, consuming my flesh, merging with my very being. The pain was excruciating, a searing agony that threatened to shatter my mind. My memories, my emotions, my very identity were being ripped away, replaced by the cold, empty void of the Ancient One's will. I fought against the transformation, clinging to the last vestiges of myself. I remembered Lena, her fear and her intellect. I remembered Ben, his youthful enthusiasm and his tragic end. I remembered Anya, her loyalty and her sacrifice. And I remembered the art, the small box, the music, and the books. These memories were my anchors, my shield against the encroaching darkness. I focused on them, clinging to them with all my might. But the Ancient Ones were too powerful. Their influence was overwhelming, their will absolute. My resistance was futile. Slowly, inexorably, I felt myself changing. My thoughts became clouded, my emotions suppressed, my will subservient. The Ancient Ones were taking control, transforming me into a mindless puppet, an extension of their malevolent will. Just when I thought I was completely lost, a flicker of something unexpected erupted within me. It was not my own will, but something else entirely. It was a spark of defiance, a surge of power that came from somewhere deep within the Ancient Ones themselves. I realized with a sudden clarity that the Ancient Ones were not as monolithic as they seemed. There were divisions among them, ancient rivalries, hidden conflicts, and I, Aris Thorne, had become a pawn in their cosmic game. The spark of defiance grew stronger, fueled by the Ancient One's own power. It surged through me, empowering me, transforming me. The pain subsided, replaced by a profound sense of calm, a serene detachment from the petty concerns of human existence. I was no longer a human being, but something else entirely. Something ancient, something powerful, something more. I broke free from the Ancient One's embrace, my body radiating an aura of dark energy. They recoiled in surprise, their eyes widening in alarm. "What is this?" one of them boomed, its voice filled with confusion. "What have you become?" I smiled, a cold, emotionless expression that sent a shiver down their spines. "I am the end of your reign," I replied, my voice devoid of all emotion. Chapter 13. The Dawn of a Broken World. The Ancient Ones recoiled, their colossal forms momentarily faltering. They had underestimated me, their arrogance blinding them to the potential within their own creation. The spark of defiance, ignited by their own ancient conflicts, had transformed me into something they could no longer control. I was no longer Aris Thorne, the servant, the rebel, or even the pawn. I was something new, something born from the fusion of human will and cosmic power. I was the embodiment of their internal strife, the catalyst for their self-destruction. "You cannot defy us," one of them roared, its voice laced with a desperate fear. "We are the masters of this world." "This is my world now," I countered, my voice resonating with newfound power, "and I will not let you destroy it." I unleashed the energy that coursed through me, a torrent of dark power that struck the Ancient Ones with devastating force. They cried out in agony, their bodies convulsing, their forms beginning to crack and crumble. The obsidian creatures, sensing their master's pain, turned on me, their bladed limbs slashing through the air. I deflected their attacks with ease, my movements fluid and graceful, my power overwhelming. I destroyed them without mercy, their grotesque forms shattering into dust. They were puppets, slaves to a dying regime, and they would share the fate of their masters. The Ancient Ones, weakened but not defeated, unleashed their full power, attempting to crush me with their cosmic might. The facility shook, the walls cracked, and the air crackled with energy. I stood firm, channeling the power that resided within me, deflecting their attacks, absorbing their energy. The more they attacked, the stronger I became. I realized that I was not fighting them alone. The memories of the lives they had destroyed, the suffering they had inflicted, fueled my resolve, empowering me. Lena, Ben, Anya, and the countless others who had fallen victim to the Ancient One's cruelty were fighting alongside me, their spirits guiding my hand, their rage driving my power. The battle raged on, a clash of cosmic forces that threatened to tear the world apart. The facility crumbled around us, the landscape transformed into a wasteland of black ice and shattered stone. Finally, with a surge of power that dwarfed anything I had felt before, I unleashed a final attack, striking the Ancient Ones with all my might. They screamed, their bodies exploding in a blinding flash of light. The vortex above us collapsed, sealing the gateway to the Obsidian City, banishing the Ancient Ones back to their icy prison. The battle was over, the Ancient Ones defeated, the world saved. But the victory was bittersweet. The world was shattered, the landscape scarred, the population decimated. The Ancient Ones were gone, but their influence remained, a lingering darkness that would take generations to overcome. I stood amidst the ruins, surveying the devastation. The whispers were silent, the silence deafening. I was alone, the last survivor of a cosmic war. I looked up at the sky, the clouds parting to reveal a glimpse of the sun. It was a pale, weak light, but it was enough. It was a sign that hope still existed, that life could still bloom in this broken world. My task was not complete. The Ancient Ones were defeated, but their legacy remained. I had to rebuild, to heal, to guide humanity towards a brighter future. I reached out to the survivors, those who had managed to escape the Ancient One's grasp. I offered them hope, guidance, and a promise of a better tomorrow. Together, we began to rebuild, brick by brick, memory by memory. It was a slow, arduous process, but we persevered. We honored the memory of those who had fallen, and we vowed to never forget the horrors that had been unleashed. Slowly, gradually, the world began to heal. The black ice receded, the landscape transformed, and the whispers faded into memory. Humanity had been scarred but not broken. We had learned a valuable lesson, a lesson about the dangers of power, the importance of hope, and the resilience of the human spirit. I remained as a guide, working from the shadows. Aris Thorne, servant of the dark, was a myth, a legend, and a warning. But from time to time, I worked with people to rediscover the value of the art from before the fall, to remind people of who we were, so that we would remember who we were supposed to be. The dawn had broken on a broken world, but it was a dawn nonetheless. And with the sun came the promise of a new beginning, a new hope, and a new chance for humanity to rise again. The end.